What you're about to learn has nothing to do with willpower. It's not about suppressing your emotions or pretending everything is okay when it's clearly not. It isn't about forcing a false sense of positivity or battling every negative thought that enters your mind. The real key to becoming emotionally unaffected by external events lies much deeper, something often overlooked because many search for answers outside themselves. But lasting change always begins within. Maybe you've noticed how some people remain calm, no matter what life throws at them. Loss, uncertainty, crisis. They stay grounded. Meanwhile, others fall apart over everyday challenges, caught in a constant cycle of emotional overwhelm. Is it just luck, personality? Or is there a deeper truth that divides those who master their inner world from those who are ruled by it? This is where most people make a mistake. They believe life is objective, that events just happen, and their emotions are simply reactions to those events. But that's not quite true. Everything you experience is shaped by how you interpret it, by long-held beliefs and unresolved emotions you've never learned to process. It's like wearing tinted glasses. No matter what you look at, it's seen through that filter. And if the lens is clouded by fear, resentment, or guilt, then that's what the world reflects back. Not because life is cruel, but because we can't see beyond what's inside us. Here's the part no one talks about. It's not about avoiding pain or escaping tough emotions. It's not about being unaffected by life's ups and downs. It's about changing the meaning you give your experiences, rewiring the way you see things, and using your emotions as tools for growth rather than burdens that keep you stuck. Reality isn't forced upon you, it's interpreted. And once you learn to guide that interpretation, you realize you have the power to choose how you respond to anything. That's real freedom. Today, I'll show you how to do this, not through vague ideas, but through principles that people with deep, lasting inner peace have lived by. You'll learn how to turn fear into clarity, how to use negative emotions to your advantage, and how to find peace within, no matter what's going on around you. What you're about to understand can change everything, but only if you're willing to turn inward and question the beliefs you've accepted as truth. In the end, it's not what happens that shapes your peace, it's how you experience it. Once you learn how to shift that perspective, you'll find that nothing and no one can affect you the same way again. Now, imagine living without those invisible filters, experiencing the world without the weight of fear, limiting beliefs, or varied emotions. The human mind is a complex maze, every thought, reaction, and feeling shaped by layers we rarely examine. Carl Jung, the renowned psychoanalyst, understood this well. He compared the psyche to an iceberg. What we see is only the conscious mind. Beneath that lies a vast subconscious holding past experiences, insecurities, unresolved wounds, and most importantly, our unconscious projections onto the world. What we don't bring into awareness doesn't disappear. It simply shows up in our reality as if it were fate. Think about how fear shows up in your life, often without you even noticing. It appears as self-doubt when you're unsure whether you're capable of something new. It hides behind procrastination when you're afraid to fail. It seeps into your relationships when you give too much out of fear of rejection or being alone. Jung taught that fear isn't our enemy. It's a messenger. It points to something unhealed inside you, but instead of listening to it, most people fight it. They suppress emotions, convince themselves they shouldn't feel sad or angry, and try to be strong all the time. That's where the real issue begins. What you resist doesn't go away. It lingers. A suppressed emotion becomes a silent weight, an unseen obstacle that holds you back without you even realizing it. Imagine a storm, strong winds, pouring rain, dark skies. You try to stop it, push against it, hold it back, but the more you resist, the more exhausted you become. The storm won't end because you fight it. It ends when it's allowed to pass. Your mind works the same way. Every emotion is like a passing storm, not permanent, just temporary. But many people try to control what they feel. They fear looking inward, so they drown out emotions with distractions, work, entertainment, or relationships that only offer short-term relief. The real issues stay hidden. But what if you stopped fighting your emotions? What if you allowed yourself to sit with your sadness? What if, instead of burying your fear, you asked what it was trying to tell you? Every emotion carries a message. Sadness may show you something needs to be released, an outdated attachment, a missed expectation, a part of you ready to let go. Fear often exposes limiting beliefs, deep-seated ideas that say you're not enough, that you don't deserve what you want, that failure must be avoided at all costs, and anger. Anger tells you your boundaries have been crossed, that your true self isn't being honored. When you stop treating emotions as problems and start treating them as guides, something shifts, and as your inner world changes, your outer world follows. Think of a time when you reacted automatically, maybe an argument, a workplace issue, or a moment of insecurity. Instead of acting out of habit, pause, breathe, step back, watch the situation, as if you're an observer, not emotionally attached. Ask yourself, what part of me is reacting right now? Is it really the situation that's affecting me, or is it something within me that was already there? The answers to those questions can shift your entire way of living. Because once you understand that external events only hold power if something inside grants it, you start to reclaim that power. Jung spoke of the silent observer, a deeper part of our consciousness that stays calm no matter what's happening around us. When you connect with this part of yourself, you realize nothing can truly disturb you unless you allow it. If something throws you off balance, it's not because life is unfair or people are cruel. It's because there's still something unresolved within. This is the true path to lasting peace, not by changing the world, but by changing how you relate to it. Once you do, even emotional storms won't scare you, because you know they'll pass and that each one carries a chance to grow. If you examine your thoughts closely, you'll see that many aren't even yours. They were absorbed at some point in your life and taken in as truths. But the truth is, you don't have to keep carrying them. What if you changed the story? Instead of repeating, "I'm not enough," what if you started believing, "I've always had what I need, and the only thing holding you back is the story you've been telling yourself"? Jung reminded us that the unconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's imagined. It just responds to what you feed it. So if you fill it with empowering beliefs, your outer reality will eventually reflect that inner change. Let's apply this to a real example. Imagine someone who's lived in fear of not being loved. Maybe they learned early on that love had to be earned through people-pleasing, self-sacrifice, and chasing approval. As an adult, they feel like they're never enough, constantly trying to avoid rejection. How do they break this cycle? First, by seeing it clearly. Jung called this shadow integration, bringing to light what has been hidden. Once this person sees they've been living from fear of not being worthy, they can begin to take back their power. They realize their value isn't based on others' approval, but on their own self-perception. And from there, things begin to change. They set boundaries. They say no without guilt. They choose themselves without fear of being left behind. And, interestingly, as they change, others respond differently, not just seeking them out for what they give, but for who they truly are. That's how cycles are broken. Now take someone who believes failure is shameful. Every time something doesn't go as planned, they beat themselves up with harsh thoughts and constant comparisons. They feel stuck, like life is out to stop them. But what happens when they begin to view failure differently? When they see mistakes as part of learning instead of personal defeat? Jung once said, "Life doesn't happen to you, it happens through you." When this person starts interpreting setbacks as lessons, their fear of failure weakens. They try again, Knowing their worth isn't tied to success, but to their willingness to grow. Here's something many people miss. Every thought you hold is a seed. If you water fear, doubt, or anger daily, they'll grow into the beliefs that shape your life. But if you choose to plant seeds of confidence, self-trust, and inner peace, your reality will change. This isn't just theory. You can test it right now. The next time a limiting thought appears, don't accept it at face value. Question it. Ask yourself, does this really belong to me, or is it an old echo I can now let go of? You'll find that these thoughts only held power because you gave it to them. Here's the most important realization. You don't need the world to change for your experience to shift. All you need is to change the way you respond to it. Someone who sees life as a series of obstacles will always find proof of that. But someone who chooses to see growth in every experience will begin to live a completely different life. This kind of exhaustion isn't just about not getting enough sleep. It goes deeper. It's the weight of something you've been carrying emotionally, a burden that won't go away. Maybe it's a conversation that didn't turn out the way you wanted. Maybe it's a comment someone made that stuck with you longer than it should have. Or it could be a mistake you haven't been able to forgive yourself for, a lingering regret that continues to resurface. You may find yourself asking, why do other people's opinions still affect me, even after everything I've done? Why do I keep replaying situations I should have moved on from? The answer isn't out there. It's not about what others said or did. It's about how you interpreted it. It's the story your mind created around that moment and how it became a part of your identity. This is where most of us get stuck. We think our suffering comes from the outside, from people, events, or even bad luck. But as Carl Jung pointed out, everything that unsettles us in the external world is actually a mirror of something unhealed within us. It's not the criticism itself that hurts. It's the part of you that still questions your worth. It's not people's lack of attention that stings. It's your own unmet need for validation that keeps asking to be seen. Until you uncover the root of what's really affecting you, you'll stay caught in the same cycles, repeating the same emotional patterns again and again. But imagine making a different choice. Imagine that instead of reacting instantly when something upsets you, you pause, you take a breath, and instead of being swept away by frustration or sadness, you ask yourself, why does this hit me so hard? What part of me is feeling this reaction? That moment of reflection can be powerful. You begin to see that the problem wasn't the other person or the situation. It was the meaning you assigned to it. You realize the fear of rejection you feel today didn't begin today. It started long ago when you first tied your self-worth to being accepted. That guilt you carry, it may not even be yours. It's likely a pattern you adopted from believing that mistakes make you unworthy. And here's where change begins. Instead of being overwhelmed by emotion, you ask yourself, if this feeling were a message, what would it be telling me? Maybe it's telling you to trust yourself more. Maybe it's nudging you to stop depending on external approval and start validating yourself. Perhaps it's reminding you to let go of others' expectations and build a life rooted in your own truth. The key isn't in what you feel, it's in what you choose to do with those feelings. And in that space, instead of feeding emotional loops with repetitive thoughts, you act from a new place. Now picture another scenario. You're in a tense argument with someone you care about. Voices are raised, emotions are flaring. In the past, you might have responded the same way, reacting with anger, trying to defend yourself. But this time you remember something Jung said about the shadow, the parts of ourselves we haven't yet accepted often show up in others. So instead of matching their intensity, you pause. You ask, what part of me is being triggered? Is it really about them, or is something deeper being touched? And in that pause, you shift. You're no longer a prisoner of your emotions. You're guiding them. You're not suppressing what you feel, but you're choosing how to respond. This small change has a huge impact. You stop feeling powerless and start seeing every emotion, every argument, every difficulty as a doorway to better understand yourself. You stop reacting from fear or insecurity and begin responding with clarity, recognizing that nothing can truly affect you unless you give it permission. When you reach this point, where your actions come from awareness instead of reaction, you make a life-changing discovery. The problems that once overwhelmed you begin to lose their grip. Not because life got easier, but because you're now seeing it through a different lens. And this brings us to the heart of it all: emotional responsibility. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Every emotion you experience, every thought that enters your mind, every response you have, these are chances to reclaim authorship over your life. This doesn't mean denying how you feel. It means asking, how can I turn this into something that makes me stronger? Think of a recent time you felt hurt. Maybe someone didn't give you the attention you hoped for, or said something that felt like a personal attack. Instead of staying stuck in the feeling of unfairness, try this. Close your eyes and see that person not as your enemy, but as an unwitting teacher, someone who, without realizing it, is revealing something about you to yourself. Ask, what part of me attracted or created this moment? How can I use it to grow? And as you reflect, you come to understand something important. The real lesson isn't about them, it's about you. You begin to realize that your worth doesn't depend on someone else seeing it, that no one else has to change for you to find peace, that everything you've been seeking outside has always lived inside of you. This is the turning point, when you stop blaming others for how you feel and start using every emotion as a signal, an invitation to grow. This is when you realize peace isn't something you find, it's something you nurture. That you alone get to define who you are and how you feel. And when that clicks, the outside world loses its power over you. In that moment, you're in charge. You send a clear message to your mind. The old habits of anxiety, insecurity, or anger aren't the only paths anymore. Each conscious choice you make rewrites your inner programming, replacing limiting beliefs with ones that empower you. But here's where many people stay stuck. They want change, but they still cling to the same stories. I'm just too sensitive. I can't help how I feel. I always take things personally. Can you see how these stories become an identity? As long as you define yourself this way, the cycle continues. But what if you started challenging these assumptions? What if, the next time you thought I'm too emotional, you paused and asked, is that really true? Or is it just a belief I've repeated so often that it feels real? This is the deeper work, rewriting the story you tell yourself, and it goes beyond surface-level affirmations. Real transformation happens when you create new experiences that reflect new beliefs. Jung emphasized integration, bringing what's been hidden in the shadows into the light. That means instead of running from your pain, you sit with it. You study it. You stop rejecting it, not to accept it as your fate, but to recognize it as part of your journey. Because in the end, words only hurt if you believe them. If someone says you'll never succeed, those words only sting if you secretly fear they might be right. But if you've done the inner work, if your confidence is rooted in your own truth, those words become meaningless. They lose their weight. But here's the question. How do you get to a point where nothing can shake you? It's not by denying your emotions or pretending everything's fine. That only builds a fragile wall that cracks under pressure. Real strength lies in being open, feeling fully, but not being ruled by those feelings. Jung once said, true freedom comes when we stop identifying with every passing thought and emotion. When you observe your emotions without getting pulled in, you reach a new level of self-awareness. Take another example. Maybe you've always felt taken for granted, like you give more than you receive. In the past, this would leave you feeling used and powerless, but now, instead of staying stuck, you ask, where am I not setting boundaries? Why is it hard for me to say no? Slowly, you begin drawing lines, not out of anger, but out of respect for yourself. And you realize when you value yourself, others do too. When you stop fearing the loss of others, you gain something even more valuable, your peace. This is the breakthrough many never reach. They keep hoping the world will change, that people will be nicer, that life will stop being so hard. But real change always begins inside, and when you change, the world responds. It's like tuning into a new station. When you stop projecting fear, insecurity, or frustration, you begin attracting experiences that match your new mindset. And suddenly, things that once felt impossible, calm, clarity, confidence, become your new normal. Now, imagine a life where nothing can throw you off balance, where every conflict passes without shaking you, where each challenge is met with calm, and every emotion is simply a wave that rises and falls. That kind of peace isn't out of reach. It's real, but only if you commit to the inner work. Only if you stop giving power to things outside of you and start building a strong foundation within. And when you do, when that shift truly takes hold, you'll notice something remarkable. The world won't feel as threatening. People won't have the same power to hurt you. Difficult moments won't control you because you're no longer seeing them through fear. You're in control. And once you feel that freedom, you'll never give it up again. Because when you allow yourself to protect your peace without guilt, everything around you begins to align. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming your true self, free from the outside influences that shaped you. And it all begins with the courage to listen to your own voice in a world constantly trying to drown it out. Ask yourself, how many times have you ignored what you really wanted just to avoid upsetting someone else? How often have you buried a feeling because you were taught it made you weak? How many times have you acted in ways that didn't feel authentic just to fit in? Each time you do that, you give a little more power to the outside world over your own peace. But the issue isn't that the world influences you. It always will. The issue is when you let that influence pull you away from who you are. That's why inner stillness matters. Jung believed our minds are full of noise, an internal dialogue we rarely stop to question. But what if, for just a few minutes each day, you simply sat with yourself? No phone, no distractions, just your own presence in those moments, you start to notice what you've been ignoring. You become aware of what you actually feel, of what you truly need.